Apple computers are not great for privacy. Okay, here's a nuanced take. Apple does a much better job than Google or Microsoft when it comes to protecting your privacy. They've built some solid safeguards into their ecosystem, but let's be real, they still collect way too much of your data. At the end of the day, their promise is basically, don't worry, we're the only ones spying on you. Google and Microsoft allow anyone to abuse your data. Apple promises that only they will abuse your data. And Linux doesn't collect your data. Of course, that's an oversimplification, but essentially, if you want the best privacy, you'll want to try out Linux. But if you're not ready to make the switch to Linux yet, how do you at least make your existing device more private? If you're on Windows, that's going to be really tough. As privacy expert Michael Bazzell says, I do not believe any modern Microsoft Windows system is capable of providing a secure or private environment for our daily computing needs. Windows is extremely vulnerable to malicious software, and their telemetry of user actions is worse than Apple's. I do not own a Windows computer, and I encourage you to avoid them for any sensitive tasks. But Bazzell does dedicate an entire chapter in his book Extreme Privacy to macOS computers, so that if you want to keep using one because it performs well and has good security, you can at least make it more private. So in this video, I'll walk you through Bazzell's recommended setup process, from buying a device or reformatting a used one to a whole bunch of different settings that you can tweak and programs you can add that will really enhance your privacy. Don't feel that you have to do everything in this video. These are all steps that you can tweak in isolation, so feel free to skip around to different chapters depending on what you want to know. But taken in its entirety, this video will allow you to use an Apple computer without sending your sensitive data to Apple and without needing an Apple account to install software. Now, I went through this process at least half a dozen times on different machines, and the exact order in which some of the settings appear varied slightly from machine to machine, so I highly recommend you read Michael Bazzell's book, which dives deeper into these slight differences. So let's get started with purchasing your Mac. If you use a credit card, the serial number of your computer will be forever tied to your identity. The best way to purchase is in person using cash. At the Apple Store, you will be judged for having that much cash on you, but it is perfectly within your right to use cash to make purchases. Expect the process to go something like this. Are you paying with credit card? Can I pay with cash? That'll be $3,000. Great. And be prepared that the Apple Store is going to go out of its way to try to collect identifying information from you. What's your Apple ID? I don't have one. I can set you up with one. No thanks. What's your phone number? I'm between phones at the moment. What's your occupation? Just a freelancer. Can I have an email address for the receipt? A printed copy will be fine. Remember, you can just say no. You handled that well. Next, you'll need to choose which model Mac you want. Be aware that all devices at some stage stop receiving updates and security patches, so make sure that you're not purchasing a machine that is no longer supported, as it's not secure to keep using the machine. Two websites that are useful here are End of Life, which will tell you which OS version is still supported, and Apple's support page, which will tell you which hardware can run these operating systems. Once you've purchased your device, if it's a refurbished device, here are the steps for updating, reformatting, and installing a new OS. If you have a brand new device, feel free to skip ahead unless you also wanted to reinstall a fresh operating system after purchase. Now, to refurbish an old device, there are three main steps. Update your software, erase your device, and freshly install a new operating system. We'll start with updating. Make sure you have an internet connection. Then update your operating system by going to System Settings, click General, and go to Software Update. Allow your machine to download and install all available updates. When it's done, the computer will reboot, and on the welcome screen, you'll click Continue. Now we're going to erase the contents of the device, so make sure that you have a backup of any files. Once that's done, go to System Settings, click General, and then click Transfer or Reset. You'll choose the Erase All Content and Settings button. The Erase Assistant will open and you'll enter your password. Confirm the warnings to complete the process. Your Mac will restart and begin erasing. Recovery Assistant will open and you'll be asked to connect to a Wi-Fi network to proceed. Your Mac will be activated and it will automatically restart. This process that you've just completed is like a reset to factory defaults, where user files, settings, apps you installed, and configurations are erased, but your system volume remains intact, meaning that the operating system itself is not erased, it's still installed. So now we'll erase the internal disk completely and reinstall macOS from scratch, which is always a good idea if you have a used device. To do this, you'll have to enter recovery mode. Once the device has rebooted and the welcome screen appears, you'll enter recovery mode. To do this, if you have Apple Silicon, you'll shut down the computer and then hold the power button until you see Loading Startup Options, and then click Options and continue. If you have an Intel-based Mac, you'll restart the computer and immediately press and hold Command-R until the Apple logo appears. You'll be asked to select a language. One option you'll then be given is to install a new copy of the operating system, which will overwrite system files but won't erase everything. If you're not super tech savvy, just choose this option and follow the prompts. If you'd prefer to do a truly clean install, you'll first have to erase your disks, but things can get screwy. Let me explain. On newer Macs, the system is split into two sections, tied together with something called firm links. There's a read-only sealed system volume and a separate data volume for your files. If you don't erase both properly, macOS can get confused and create phantom volumes or fail to link the new system properly. This happened to me once, and I couldn't figure out why my computer memory kept getting filled up when I thought that I had deleted everything. But it turns out that there was a phantom volume hidden in there that I wasn't even aware of. So if you want a clean install of the operating system and you're more tech savvy, here's how to do it. In recovery mode, choose Disk Utility. Then under View, click Show All Devices. The top level physical disk will be named something like Apple SSD, and under it will be something like Container Disk 3. Select Apple SSD. Click Erase at the top. You'll be asked to confirm that you want to erase the top level disk and create a new APFS container under it. For name, write Macintosh HD. You can rename it if you want, but I recommend sticking with Macintosh HD. For format, it should be APFS. And under scheme, keep GUID partition map selected. Then click Erase. And the Apple logo will appear as the machine erases. And then you'll get to the Mac activation page. You'll again need an internet connection to proceed. Once you connect, you'll see the text, "Your Mac is activated." Click Exit to recover. Now, you'll again get the option of reinstalling your operating system. Select that option and continue. You'll get a licensing agreement that you need to agree to. Click Agree and then confirm that you agree. Did you read it? I know you didn't. Here's what it said.
By clicking Agree, you are also acknowledging that Apple may show your mouth to the butthole of another iTunes user.
Okay, it probably didn't say that. Probably. There are also websites like Terms of Service Didn't Read that will summarize these things if you'd like to get an idea of what you're actually signing up for. Next, you'll choose the disk where you want to install macOS, and you'll select the newly erased volume Macintosh HD, or whatever you named it, and click Continue. The installation could take a while depending on your internet speed. Once the computer has rebooted, you should possess a clean installation of macOS ready for us to set up. Let's go through the setup slowly. Don't connect to the internet yet. We want to put up some protections on the computer first. Launch your macOS for the first time and click Next on the welcome screen. Depending on which version of the OS you're running, you might see a slightly different order for the following. Select your region and click Continue. Click Not Now for accessibility options. When prompted to select your Wi-Fi network, choose Other Network Options and then select My computer does not connect to the internet. Click Continue and then Continue again on the pop-up. On the Data and Privacy notification, click Continue. On Migration Assistant, click Not Now. You may be tempted to migrate your backup onto your new device, but the point of this tutorial is to start fresh, not carry over old bloat or legacy settings. We're rebuilding our Mac with privacy and security in mind, so skip Migration Assistant. You might be prompted here to sign in with an Apple ID. If so, select Set Up Later. Then you'll come to a Terms and Conditions page. Click Agree agree. After reading all 5 million words thoroughly, of course.
You're telling me that every time you guys download an update for iTunes, you read the entire terms and conditions?
Of course.
Well, how do you know if you agree to something if you don't read it?
Now you'll create a local account for your computer. You should choose a generic name, such as laptop or computer, because the name you give your device becomes part of how the computer identifies itself, both locally and on networks. In other words, if you call your Mac Naomi's MacBook Pro, that exact identifier may leak out in multiple situations, such as being broadcast over Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or network sharing. It can appear in logs, discovery searches, or nearby device lists. By using a generic name like laptop or computer instead of your own, you minimize exposing personal details, making it harder for others to identify and target you. Then choose a very strong password that you can remember. I don't add any password hint, but I do make sure I have my password recorded safely somewhere. Then click Continue. Make sure Location Services is not enabled, then click Continue. Confirm choice by clicking Don't Use. Select your desired time zone and click Continue. Deselect all analytics options and click Continue. Bypass screen time settings by clicking on Set Up Later. And then you'll get an Apple Intelligence page. Click Continue. On the Siri page, bypass Setup by clicking Set Up Later. Next is the Touch ID section. You can choose whether you want to activate this. Your fingerprint data never actually leaves your Mac and isn't uploaded to Apple's servers. It's stored locally in the secure enclave on your Mac's chip. The benefit of using this feature is that it allows you to discreetly unlock and authorize actions in public places without having to type in your password when others might see it. So I personally like it. You can decide whether you want to set it up. Choose your desired screen mode and click Continue. You'll come to a welcome screen and click Continue, and then you'll be brought to your new desktop. We can now start tweaking settings within our computer, starting with Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Go to System Settings, go to Wi-Fi on the left menu, and then toggle it off. Disable both Ask to Join Networks and Ask to Join Hotspots. Now go to Bluetooth from the left menu and disable it. Next, we'll configure the operating system's firewall. A firewall monitors and manages network traffic going to and from your device. By enforcing rules on which connections are allowed or blocked, it helps protect against unwanted or malicious access. There are two firewalls that we'll set up in this video. The first is the operating system's inbuilt firewall, which is just responsible for the way the operating system treats incoming connections. We'll configure this to automatically block incoming connections unless we specifically allow them when prompted. Select Network from the left menu and select Firewall. Toggle the firewall on and click Options. Disable Automatically Allow built-in software to receive incoming connections. Disable Automatically Allow downloaded signed software to receive incoming connections. Enable Stealth Mode. This makes your Mac ignore or drop certain types of unsolicited network traffic, like ping requests, which can help it appear invisible to scanners or other devices on a network. This reduces the chance of attackers identifying and probing your Mac. You'll notice how with the latest OS, Mac now auto-approves a bunch of firewall rules even on fresh install. You don't need to keep these enabled unless you're specifically using these features. On my computer, I turn them off by selecting them all and then clicking the negative button. Then click OK. Next step is notifications. You don't necessarily want your sensitive applications to display content on the screen when you're not around or when others may be looking. Also, I find that having notifications on makes me reactive instead of intentional with how I use my device. So for mental health, I try not to have notifications unless really needed. Select notifications from the left menu. Change Show Previews to Never. Disable Allow notifications when the device is sleeping. Disable Allow notifications when the screen is locked. Disable Allow notifications when mirroring or sharing the display. And I keep Summarize notifications off. Now go through each application and disable the notifications inside each, clicking the arrow when you're done to get back to the previous screen. I also like to disable unnecessary sounds by going to Sound in the left menu. I change Alert Volume to the minimum setting, disable Play Sound on startup, disable play user interface sound effects, and disable play feedback when volume is changed. Now let's look at our AirDrop, Siri, and sharing settings. Select General from the left menu. Go to AirDrop and Handoff. Disable everything in this screen. Confirm AirDrop is set to no one. Now go back to General on the left menu. Select Sharing. Confirm all options are disabled. On the latest OS, you'll see Apple Intelligence and Siri in the left menu. Click it and then turn off Apple Intelligence. Confirm that Siri is also disabled. Now click About Siri, Dictation and Privacy. The following may be redundant. It's often not clear how many toggles a user has to go through to actually get their desired result sometimes, so we're going to turn Siri off manually under every app too. Click each application and disable all toggles. When you're finished toggling off all applications, click Done. One thing that Michael Bazzell recommends is turning off Spotlight, but some people might find this too inconvenient, so we're not going to go over it in this video. Spotlight is basically a tool for indexing and searching for things on your device. We'll explore the trade-offs of using Spotlight as opposed to alternative indexing and search tools at a later date. For now, if you have a newer device, click on Spotlight in the left column and scroll down and toggle off Help Apple Improve Search. Next, let's look at Gatekeeper. Gatekeeper helps protect the security of the device by providing extra vetting of apps. For most people, I would recommend keeping this on and skipping ahead. Basically, whenever you open an application for the first time or after it's been updated, macOS determines whether or not Apple has verified the software. Gatekeeper prevents all unknown apps from opening, which can save you from installing and running a malicious program. But this setting is not going to be ideal for everyone because it's a barrier that stops you downloading external software. If you download legitimate apps that have not been officially approved by Apple, your computer will initially refuse to open them, and you'll have to keep bypassing these protections manually, which can be annoying. On top of that, Apple's Gatekeeper service sends data about the applications present on your device to Apple. This means that Apple is basically keeping track of every application on your machine and constantly announcing your software habits to Apple's servers. This would make it trivial to track us, even without an Apple ID, because computers appear unique based on this fingerprint of installed apps and activity. For this reason, some people might consider disabling Gatekeeper, but this option definitely isn't for everyone. Only turn this off if you fit the following criteria. You're more technically adept, you're very careful with what you install, and you never download things from unknown sources, you commonly run trusted open source apps which are not Apple approved, and you don't want roadblocks to using them. To disable it, you'll need to type some commands into Terminal. Again, if you're not super tech savvy, you should probably skip this step. Playing around with sudo commands can brick or erase your entire machine if you don't know what you're doing. On top of this, you could likely use the extra protection on your machine. So keep Gatekeeper enabled and skip ahead. For the rest of us, open Terminal and type sudo space spctl space --master-disable. Michael Bazzell has a text file that you can download as part of Extreme Privacy Volume 5 with all of these commands written down that you can just copy and paste to make sure that you're putting the right thing in. You'll get a prompt in Terminal saying that disabling the assessment system needs to be confirmed in System Settings. Go to System Settings and then Privacy and Security and scroll down. At the bottom, under Security, it says Allow Applications From. If you look at the options, you should now see the option Anywhere. Select Anywhere and enter your password to confirm. Another pop-up will appear warning you that this will make your Mac less secure. If this is a risk that you want to take, click Allow from Anywhere. To confirm whether Gatekeeper has been disabled, in Terminal type spctl space --status. It should now say Disabled. Now let's tweak some settings to do with analytics and ads. Go to System Settings, select Privacy and Security from the left menu, select Analytics and Improvements and verify all are disabled. Then go back to Privacy and Security on the left menu. Select Apple Intelligence Report and toggle it off. Then go back to Privacy and Security again. Select Apple Advertising. Under Personalized Ads, Apple used to give you a toggle that you could automatically switch off. Now you have to wait till they give you a pop-up asking if they can show personalized ads, and then the toggle will appear, marking your selection. The next is a quick setting about how your system is going to know what time it is. You'll notice that your time is usually set automatically. That's because your computer regularly contacts a time server using the network time protocol, a standard way of syncing clocks across the internet. By default, macOS uses Apple's own time servers, which means that every time your system pings for the time, it's sending a request to Apple's infrastructure, revealing your IP address and the fact that your device is online at that moment. That may not seem like a big deal, but over time, these pings can become another data point in your digital fingerprint. Combined with other metadata, they can help profile or track behavior. So instead, we'll configure your Mac to use the Network Time Protocol project's public time server, pool.ntp.org. This is a decentralized, open source network of volunteer-run servers distributed all over the world. It's not tied to any corporation, and the requests you make aren't funneled through Apple's infrastructure. Select General and choose Date and Time. Click Set. You'll be prompted to enter your password. Then in the Time Server field, write pool.ntp.org and click Done. Next is likely the most important setting in this video. Filevault. By default, the data stored on your computer is not encrypted. This means that if someone gets access to your device, they might be able to extract your data. To prevent this, we're going to turn on full disk encryption via Apple's Filevault. Please be aware, you will be given a private key during this process, and you have to write it down somewhere safely where you won't lose it. This is super important. Do not save it on your computer. If your device is locked and you need the key to unlock it, you won't be able to access it. To turn on Filevault, go to your System Settings, select Privacy and Security from the left menu. Scroll all the way to the bottom. Click Filevault, then click Turn On. Then enter your system password and click Unlock. You'll be asked how you want to store your recovery key. We're not linking this computer to an iCloud account, so you'll want to choose Create a Recovery Key and do not use my iCloud account. Write down this recovery key with a pen and paper, make sure it's legible, and keep it somewhere safe, and then click Continue. Your device will now encrypt the drive, including all data stored within it. This is a vital piece of protection. Next, under the Filevault setting, you'll see an option called Lockdown Mode. In these privacy settings, Bazzell doesn't recommend that you use it because it will restrict the use of some external devices. Basically, while this setting does offer an additional layer of protection from cyber attacks, most of the benefits apply only to Apple's infrastructure, including FaceTime, iMessage, Photos, and other macOS provided applications. He says that he doesn't use any of these, and if you're privacy conscious, then neither should you. You can decide for yourself whether you want to turn this feature on. Now we'll tweak some settings to do with your computer's appearance. Select Desktop and Dock from the left menu. Disable Show Suggested and Recent Apps in Dock. Disable Show Recent Apps in Stage Manager. Select Wallpaper from the left menu. By default, macOS uses version-specific wallpapers that reveal your OS at a glance. We'll change this to a solid color to make your setup more generic and less identifiable. At the bottom, you'll have the option of picking a custom color. Pick the color you want. Then select Lock Screen from the left menu. Change Start Screensaver when inactive to Never. Here are a couple of personal preferences. Change Turn Display Off on battery when inactive to for 1 hour. And confirm with your password. Change Turn Display Off on Power Adapter when inactive to for 1 hour. Change Require Password after screensaver begins or display is turned off to Immediately. This ensures that your Mac locks the moment that the screen turns off or the lid is closed, reducing the window for unauthorized access. Now let's talk about hidden files. macOS hides certain system files by default to prevent users from accidentally tampering with them. But if you're more tech savvy and confident that you won't modify anything critical, you can choose to make these hidden files visible. Open Finder and on the top of the screen select Go and click Computer. Then select Macintosh HD. Then press and hold Shift plus Command plus period. A bunch of hidden files will now be visible to you. Again, you should keep these files hidden if you think that there's a chance you might unintentionally tamper with them. I then modify the following Finder settings. Click Finder in the upper left menu and then click Settings. Choose the General tab. On my desktop, I elect to have hard disks, external disks, and connected servers visible. Set new Finder windows to open in the Documents folder instead of recent files. I prefer not to have a list of everything I've been working on pop up automatically, especially if someone else is using or looking at my screen. And I keep the Open Folders and Tabs instead of New Windows box checked to keep things neat so that I don't have too many windows. Under the Tags tab, I remove all tags from the sidebar. You can decide whether or not you use this feature. Under the Sidebar tab, I deselect Recents. These are the favorites that I have visible out of personal preference, and these are the locations I have visible, again out of personal preference. And under the Advanced tab, I enable Show All File Name Extensions. This is a simple but important setting. Without it, a file like something or other.pdf could actually be something or other.pdf.exe, and you'd never know. Showing extensions makes it easier to spot potentially dangerous files, and it's surprising that this isn't on by default. And then I adjust my dock by dragging off all the icons I don't want to use and adjust the appearance of icons in the dock according to my preferences by going to System Settings, selecting the Desktop and Dock tab, and tweaking the settings I prefer. As you download apps, you can add your favorites to the dock. At this point, your operating system is hardened and ready for third-party apps. You should still be offline, and you haven't linked the machine to an Apple ID, which is key. By avoiding that association, you've made it much harder for Apple to tie your activity to your identity. I don't use an Apple ID on any of my Mac computers, and I don't plan to. Doing it this way keeps things significantly more private and secure. The next step is to install an application firewall. We've already enabled the built-in firewall to block unwanted incoming connections. Now we want to stop outgoing connections, preventing apps on your device from sending data to the internet without your knowledge. As soon as you connect your Mac to the internet, it starts communicating with Apple's servers and with third-party servers tied to the apps that you're using. To limit that exposure, you'll want to install a third-party application firewall like Little Snitch. This lets you control which apps are allowed to make outbound connections and gives you the ability to allow or deny each one individually. There's also a free alternative called Lulu that you can check out, but we won't be covering that in this video. We've already made a full tutorial on how to configure Little Snitch, so we won't go into detail here. I'll just walk you through how to get it installed. You have two options to start. Connect to the internet on your new device and download Little Snitch directly, or use a second computer to download the installer onto a USB stick and then transfer it to your new machine. The benefit of the USB method is that you can keep your new machine offline until Little Snitch is installed and actively blocking outbound connections, minimizing early data leaks. Either way, go to obdev.at/products/littlesnitch to download the installer. Save it to your USB stick or directly onto the Mac if you're online. Once it's installed, watch our Little Snitch tutorial to configure it properly. My advice, block anything that you know you won't need, and for everything else, try blocking it first, and if something breaks, you can always unblock it later. Michael Bazzell also offers pre-configured rule sets for Little Snitch in his book Extreme Privacy, which I use in my setup. I highly recommend importing his recommended settings as they'll save you a lot of work. The second app I recommend installing is the Brave browser. If you want to compare browser privacy, check out privacytests.org, and if there's another browser that you prefer, go with that. I use Brave instead of Safari because unless you've enabled advanced data protection, Safari shares your bookmarks and activity with Apple. Next, install a reputable VPN. Be careful, not all VPNs are trustworthy. Some are outright surveillance tools. I recommend Mulvad or Proton, but there are other solid options depending on your needs. Finally, I suggest installing a package manager called Homebrew. We'll cover that in a separate deep dive video. If you've made it this far, congratulations! You now have a Mac that is dramatically more private and secure than the one you took out of the box. Apple does build decent privacy tools, but they definitely don't make it easy to opt out of their own surveillance. With the right tools and configurations though, you can take back control of your digital environment. You've erased your machine, hardened the OS, limited data exposure, and you skipped the Apple ID tether that makes your activity easily traceable. Whether you're doing sensitive work or simply believe in the right to privacy, these steps put you in charge. A huge thank you to Michael Bazzell for his outstanding work documenting this setup. I am not affiliated with him in any way. His tools have just been the most valuable in my own privacy journey, and I highly recommend checking out his work at inteltechniques.com. He's doing some of the most practical and impactful privacy research out there, and supporting voices like his helps keep this kind of work alive. We'll keep exploring this setup in future videos, but for now, you've done the hard part. You're no longer using a default system built to track you. You've created one that works for you, not for Apple or third parties. Nice work. NBTV is a project of the Ludlow Institute, a non-profit research and media institute that educates people about how to reclaim ownership of their digital lives. Help us shift culture around privacy. Visit ludlowinstitute.org/donate to support our mission. And also check out our merch shop for cool clothes that can support the mission as well. If you made it this far, I'm very proud of you. That was a long video.